Hey folks, it is time for us to paint some of our custom-made jigs where we're going to turn this into this. Stay tuned. Okay folks, earlier I showed you how, to make jigs, and so you can see here's the product of lots of jig making. So now it's time for me to paint these up. So I thought I'd share with you exactly the equipment used in order to paint the jigs. So in no particular order, you're going to need some type of a heat source. So I've just got an inexpensive heat gun I picked up at a local Canadian Tire. Some people use like candle flames, some people will use little butane torches. This works well for me because I can control how much heat there is. Then you need some paint. Now really you only need one color, but here's kind of the most common I've seen, and it's called ProTech paint. So this is ProTech powder paint, and I've got about 7 different colors that I can use. Now, you can use those to make single colors, or I'll actually show you how I make multicolor jigs as well. So we need to have some paint. We need to have a heat gun. We need, of course, the unpainted jig. And then one of the things that I've developed is kind of to up my game, so to speak, is to go with what's called a fluid bed. So this is a fluid bed. So what you have here is a pump, which is really just like an aquarium pump that would, fire air into the tank to, make things move. And then it comes into this PVC bottom, and then there's little cup tops like this, and there's filters underneath that allow the air. So what happens is it pumps air in, and if you want to come and have a look, by doing so, if we look right in, you can kind of see how it's like a little bit of a volcano. And what it does is it creates the air and creates volume and fluffiness to that paint, because one of the things that when you're doing your jigs, you want them covered in paint, but you don't want it too thick because it'll actually kind of melt and drip and wreck things. So once you've got your paint in your different containers, if you're going to be doing multiple colors, you want some like just little cheap brushes which you'll use to dab on different colors. So let's go ahead now and take a look at how we actually paint. So it'll get a little bit louder here as I turn this gun on. Pair of pliers. So I'm going to take some pliers, and I'll start off doing a single color. I take some pliers here, and what I'm going to do is use it to heat up the jig. Now, the one thing about using a heat gun that's nice is it is a little bit more regulated. I can move it up or down because you don't want to get this too hot because you could melt the jig, or you'll get too much paint and too much heat and it'll burn it on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip it in. So if you want to come and have a look here. So once I get it good and hot, and then I'm coming in here and a little dip, tap, 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 and there is a painted jig. Now, I'm going to hang it. And so where I'm hanging it here is actually on the rack of a toaster oven, because eventually we need to bake these. So now, we'll take another look at that. So again, you're just going to heat it up, and you get a feel for how long you need to heat it up. Going all the way around. And I would say err on the side of being less hot, because you can always zap it again. So here we go, into the paint, tap off the excess, and if we take a look at that, you can see it's not quite shiny yet. That will occur in the oven a little bit later. So there's a couple of chartreuse jigs. So what if I wanted to add an accent color to it? So we'll make one here, we'll put some orange on it. So the same thing, take up the jig, melt it up. Now I'm going to use this orange. So all I do here is I get it just like before. I'm going in, tap, 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 and now I'm going to just take some orange on top of that. And now you can see we got two-tone. Now, quite often what I'll do here now is I'll give it just a little bit of a shot of the heat to set it up. And now we've got a second one. Now you do want to make sure that your eyes are cleared up, so give me 1 second and I'll show you how you do that. So we'll keep filming. And I've gone to get the fancy equipment of a toothpick. Lots of ways you can do this. I've seen guys use shrink wrap to protect the eyes, but having a toothpick handy is really all I've needed. So, heater up. So what we'll do on this one, we're going to do the green again, and then we'll put a bit of black on. So in it goes, quick little swish, tap it off, and now we got the black. Again, just to help that paint set. Now you can see we've got a two-tone in the black on it. But what I've really enjoyed is adding a couple colors on. Heat this up again. So you see, it doesn't take too long once you kind of get yourself organized, and if you know ahead of time what kind of colors you're doing, you just kind of have those ready. So you kind of do your base color, and then you switch the base later. So in I go, tap, 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 throwing on a little bit of the orange, throw a little on the black. And you got a nice little kind of a fire tiger there. Roll it up, and you're set. And so the final step is going to be to bake these in the oven. And when you bake them in the oven, you can see here how they get nice and shiny. Now, the eyes are not on yet. That's the very, very last thing. After you've baked them and you've cooled them, then we'll apply the eyes. So I've got about 100 jigs to paint here, and the next thing is we'll show you how we bake them in the oven. Okay folks, so we have now painted up an assortment of jigs. I got about 40 jigs here, and I said I was hanging them on the drying rack because eventually they've got to go into like an oven to finally bake. So got a little toaster oven. This guy's dedicated to just baking jigs, so I'm not baking jigs in the same place that I would bake some toast. But I've got mine at about 300 degrees. You're gonna see different people will bake them at different temperatures and different lengths. I go for about 300 degrees at about 20 minutes or so. Now, one thing you gotta be careful is when you put them in, they have a tendency to shake and slide, and you don't want them touching. So what we'll do here is we'll get the oven going. Now, carefully bring them over. I'm not too worried. They're probably going to slide a little bit as I put them in. But once I get them in the oven, you know, I'll then just have a quick look and move apart any that I think are close, and I'll just look to see if anyone's touching anyone. Looks good. Off it goes. Crank the time up. Come back in 30 minutes and they should be done. Okay folks, we have taken the jigs out of the oven now, so they've turned out great. So just as a reminder here, you know, we went from, you know, just a straight lead jig that we had poured and filed down. Then we powder coated them, and then you can see how they turned out. You can get in here, so you can see it's nice and shiny, and where we did those multiple coats, you know, it's really smoothed out. So I've put a few out that you can kind of take a look at. There's a, you know, kind of an orange and a white, and, you know, the black with the pink. And then you can also even just see kind of how the solids turned out. So the next step here is now we got to put some eyes on them. So these are 3D eyes that I ordered in from, again, this is from luremaking.com, this particular one. And there's no rhyme or reason to this. It's really just a little bit of the creative side of saying, you know, what might look good. And so they're just adhesive. I don't use glue on them. Haven't needed to. I know that's an option, but basically you're just gonna peel the eye off. And the nice thing of this freestyle jig is there is a nice little groove that you just have to put in. So, you know, there you see, there we go from, you know, eye, you know, no eye, and we match them up. And so now I've got, you know, another 40 jigs here where I'm gonna put the eyes on them, and then I will be done, and these ones will be ready to catch some fish.